This YouTube video is dedicated to ActionAid Ireland. ActionAid have been campaigning for humanitarian crises for years now, and they continue to do lots of hard work in the current humanitarian crisis in Gaza. If you have the means to do so, I'd really appreciate if you go to the link in my description to ActionAid's website and make any donations you can. Gurv míle maith agaibh, and please now enjoy the video.
Díag with a carja agus fáilte go mo charnéil na YouTube. This video is in part fulfilment of my politics and society project as part of my leaving certificate. The title I chose for my politics and society project is to research the role of one non-government organisation, an NGO, in a humanitarian crisis. Based on your conclusions, organise an appropriate action that might help the work of this NGO. So the humanitarian crisis, as some of you may imagine, I decided to pick the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and sort of trying to analyse a bit about Hamas's role in this, a bit about the USA and the Israeli sort of military campaign on the city of Gaza. So in this video, the purpose of this video is to go through the Universal Declaration of Human Rights declared in 1948 and examine Hamas's breachments of this declaration as well as the Israeli government's breaches. The UDHR was brought about in 1948 in the post-World War II society. So after World War II, after we saw the horrors of the Holocaust and all the various tragedies and inhumaneness of World War II, over 60 million deaths and whatnot, the UDHR was brought in to fruition with the goal of ensuring we never saw these horrors again. And it is the birthright of every human being on this earth to have their basic human rights according to the UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So in this video, I'm going to be analysing all 26 declarations and seeing which ones have the Israeli government and Hamas breached. Please watch until the end to find out how the pair got on. All I'll say is, briefly before we properly get into it, is I felt like I was a teacher correcting a really weak student's exam and sort of trying to give out pity marks, like, okay, maybe I could give him a mark there, the odd mark there. It was really bad reading, and humanitarian crisis is definitely what this is. So without further ado, let's go on to declaration number 1. So declaration number 1 states that everyone is born free and has dignity because they are human. So straight off the bat, in my opinion, this is clearly a declaration that is being massively violated for all of the innocent humans and civilians in Gaza. In a recent webinar I attended with a Palestinian human rights activist named Rihan Jafari, who I will be citing quite a lot in this, as well as various sources like Al Jazeera and Israeli news sources as well. She states that currently and this was back in about March, so I imagine the situation could be worse now, but that 1 in 6 children in Gaza is either suffering from malnutrition, and some are even starving. So particularly in the north side of the city, some are actually dying from starvation, and 1 of 6 is suffering from malnutrition. So they're not getting enough food into their systems, to survive. So UDHR Declaration number 1 stating that everyone is born free and has dignity because they are human. I think it's very clear, and I'm not going to put this up in this video here because it's just so shocking. But if to some of the sick viewers out there, if you want to see, some of the images that are coming out of children right now out of Gaza, it's absolutely shocking. And I don't think anybody could say that these people are free or are living lives of dignity. So straight off the bat, declaration number 1, it has to be a rejected. Declaration number 1 is clearly being violated by both parties. So declaration number 2 states that everyone has equal rights regardless of differences between people. such as gender, colour, religion, language, wealth, or political opinion. So, the Israel-Palestine conflict is one that is rooted in so much history, cultural differences, etc., etc. So when UDHR Declaration number 2 states that everyone has equal rights regardless of difference between people, colour, religion, language, etc., I think it's very clear that this is being violated by both sets and by both sets of people in some ways. So obviously Hamas's barbaric attack on October the 7th, that's kind of covered enough Hamas's role in this. However, I don't think it's any good, me as a young 18-year-old cynic from North Cork, trying to claim that the Israeli side are discriminating Palestinian people's religion or not. What instead I'm going to do is I'm going to cite a clip now, just beside my statement here, from RTE News, of a man who, God bless him, went through an extremely traumatic circumstance where his daughter was stolen from Hamas. But his comments, just an ordinary Israeli civilian, I think that you will find that the Israeli attitude is very much that eliminate the Palestinian race, because we don't want young Palestinian boys and girls to grow up into Hamas, to be so barbaric. I'm going to cite that clip as soon as I'm finished talking here, but in summation, Declaration number 2, unfortunately, it has to be another violation.
The cost is incalculable. So has this community been able to grieve at all?
Every day, on the hour, every hour, till about 5 o'clock in the evening from the morning, we bury another one. They're all gone now, killed by terrorists. They're not militants. They're not militants at all. They're not freedom fighters. They've had every chance since 1947 to agree to some kind of peace deals, some movements, but no, they don't even want to sit at a table. In their charter, in the charter of the Hamas, they say, we just want to wipe you from the river of Jordan to the sea, obliterate us, wipe us off the face of the planet. And they had a damn good try. That Saturday morning. They were murderous butchers. But that was our Pearl Harbor moment. They declared war on us with an act of war, and we will destroy them. We will do exactly what they intended to do to us. We will do it to them.
So Declaration number 3 states that everybody has a right to life and the right to live in freedom and safety. I don't think any of you need me to explain this too much, folks. It's very clear that when you look at the death tolls, when you look at how obliterated the city of Gaza is, when you look at the hostages that Hamas is currently taking in, etc., and still have to this day since October 7th, it's very clear that nobody really in Gaza is free or safe at the moment, or the Hamas hostages. Nobody there is safe. I think it's very clear that, unfortunately, Declaration number 3 is another violation. So Declaration number 4 states that no one shall be held in slavery. So this is a difficult one. This is one I had to do a little bit of digging into, a bit of research into. I've come to the conclusion that I think it is a violation, because if you look at Hamas's hostages currently, they're prisoners, I suppose. They're not necessarily slaves, but we don't know what's happening with them. So it's entirely possible that they could be subjected to slavery. Perhaps they're just prisoners. As I said, when I'm going through all 26 declarations, it becomes increasingly harder and harder to justify that these are passed. So I sort of it was a real toss of a coin. No one shall be held in slavery. It's a toss of a coin. I think it's entirely possible that there's people in Gaza and under hostage by Hamas at the moment that are probably being used as slaves. I don't think anybody under the bombings in Gaza is being used as a slave, simply because they'd be no good as slaves. They don't have the energy to be slaves. They're too busy being blown up. However, perhaps the hostages being held Hamas are being. I think, look, I've come to the conclusion, I think this is the first one we're going to deem as a pass. However, it's up to your own interpretation. So with declaration number 4 there, we had our first pass. As I say, could have gone either way, really. You could have probably said it was a violation, but I'm trying to be give out pity marks here. Anyway, declaration number 5. Everyone has the right not to be hurt, tortured, or treated cruelly. Very simple one here, folks. Unfortunately, I think it's quite clear that this is a violation. I can only imagine how cruelly the hostages must be being treated by Hamas in the last 6 months. I'm sure they've been potentially tortured, definitely hurt, definitely treated cruelly. But again, you just have to go onto Twitter and to X and see some of the photos of these Palestinian children. They're boneless. They're surviving, but they are certainly not living, and a lot of them aren't surviving. I think it's very clear that this could go under the brand of definitely hurt, potentially torture, and definitely treated cruelly. So unfortunately, Declaration of Chuig is another violation. Declaration number 6 is an interesting one. It says that everyone has the right to be treated as a person under the law everywhere. So briefly, I'm just going to say I think this is another violation, because what precisely is the laws in Gaza right now? How can there be, it's very clear that every single law, that any decent abiding law, is pretty much under siege right now. I mean, these people are too busy being bombed and being used as cannon fodder that to actually say that they're being treated as a person under the law. It's very simple. There is no law in Gaza right now. You know what I mean? So I think, unfortunately, number 6 is yet another violation. Declaration number 7 is another interesting one. The law is the same for everyone and should protect everyone equally. I think it's very clear that this isn't the case. And look, this is perhaps shading a little bit off topic, but it is still on topic. I think this is absolutely no hate to the Jewish people, because one little thing I'd like to raise that I'm seeing a rise in, particularly in American colleges and stuff, USA colleges, is a rise in anti-Semitism. And we must understand that condemning Israel's actions is not to condemn the Jewish people. The Jewish people are lovely, lovely people who contribute so much to the world. So it's important to get that out the way first. And I'm not even opposed to an Israeli state, a Jewish Israel state, if Israel isn't bothering anyone. But listen, that's a topic maybe for another video, perhaps. However, I think there's an argument to be made that Palestinians, since the inception of the Israel state in 1948, I don't think Palestinians have ever been treated equally as people of the law. People of Palestine lived in that land, sort of an Arabic people lived in that land for years and years and years. All of a sudden, the Jewish people, God help them after their horrible tragedy of the Holocaust came. But since then, it's quite clear they've kicked Arabs out of their land, Palestinians. That's why this is such a contentious argument to this day, So in my opinion, number 8 is definitely a violation today, when we see how the city of Gaza is now more than ever under siege. However, I feel this is probably one that has been a violation for some years now, not just in the recent military campaign since October 7th. So, hate to say it, number 8 is yet another violation. It's tough out here. Number 9, I've been quite harsh on Israel so far, I think that's fair to say, but number 9 is one that strictly applies to Hamas. This is not an attack at anyone from Israel or the Israeli government even. So number 9 states, no one should be arrested, imprisoned, or expelled from their country without good reason. Now, I've slightly touched on Hamas holding hostages into their in prisons and stuff, and in dungeons, is innocent Israeli civilians as young as 14 and stuff. This is a clear violation from Hamas. Hamas, if we ever are going to reach a ceasefire, which should be everyone's ultimate aim, in my opinion, in this whole tragedy, Hamas needs to release these hostages immediately. I mean, it's absolutely tragic that innocent Israeli civilians are being held hostage, and according to the UDHR Declaration number 9, are being expelled from their country. That's exactly what's happening with them, without a good reason, and there isn't a good reason. The only reason is simply they're Israeli. Look, I'm sure there's some probably IDF soldiers or maybe really far extreme Zionists who deserve to maybe be imprisoned. I don't know. But all I do know is for a fact is that there's an overwhelming majority of innocent, young, sometimes children, civilians. And this is a disgrace. And this is absolutely a violation on the part of Hamas for Declaration number 9. So yet another violation, I'm afraid, folks. It doesn't make for great reading from here. That's all I'll say. So number 10, everyone has the right to a fair trial if accused of a crime. Okay, my humble opinion is the Israeli government are and have been committing war crimes since October 7th. And of course, this was just a retaliation of the barbaric war crime onto Israel, into Tel Aviv from Hamas. What I'd say is, just briefly, I suppose, talking about the Israeli attack and military campaign that still goes on to this day as we speak. I don't think it's fair to say that anyone is getting that right to a fair trial at the moment, because never mind getting a trial, they're just thinking, am I going to get bombed? When am I going to be bombed? That's literally the mindset of many innocent Palestinian civilians at the moment. So yeah, Declaration number 10, everyone has a right to a fair trial if accused of a crime. In my humble opinion, it's very clear that nobody is getting that dignified right to a fair trial. So unfortunately, Declaration number 10 is going to be another violation. So Declaration number 11 states that everyone has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty if accused of a crime. So to my knowledge, and please correct me in the comment section below if this is inaccurate, but I believe that United Nations and etc. has looked into Israel's sort of military campaign since October 7th and have said that they are committing war crimes in Gaza at the moment. So could you say potentially that this is that they, before the UN courts, I suppose, went into these sort of trials, Israel was considered innocent until proven guilty, and now they have been proven guilty after extensive trials, I imagine, in the space of 6 months and ongoing. So I think this one potentially as well. Look, this is a little bit of me being the teacher trying to give pity marks. I think it's fair to say this is one we could give off as a pass. However, if anyone wants to disagree with me in the comments or correct me on some inaccuracies, by all means, please do. But I think Declaration number 11 is going to be our second non-violation. So happy days. Declaration number 12 is very straightforward. Everyone has the right to privacy. Yeah, I don't think anyone in Gaza right now has any privacy. How can you have privacy when you're scared that you might be bombed in the next few hours? Most of them probably don't even have a home. Most of them are probably just struggling on the streets. A lot of them are literally like many like my NGO Action Aid that I want you all to try and support if you have the means to do so. Many of these aid supporters and the likes of Rihan Jafari, which I mentioned earlier, are reporting that there is genuine famine going on in parts of Gaza right now. Obviously, they're being blown to bits. It's very clear. This is a very easy violation. Nobody in Gaza, or probably the hostages being held by Hamas, has the right to privacy. So that's a clear violation. So Declaration number 13 is going to be fairly clear cut again. Everyone has the right to travel within and outside their own country. This is, look, firstly, I'm going to touch again on the poor Israeli hostages being held in by Hamas. they don't have this right. They don't even have the right to travel outside of their dungeon cell. Okay, so clearly that right is being violated by Hamas. On the Israeli side, I don't think it's Declaration number 14 is going to be interesting for a wider discussion in this, so I'm only just going to start to gloss over it. But yeah, there's absolutely no innocent civilians in Gaza at the moment who are traveling anywhere. All they're probably doing is taking shelter and praying that they don't get bombed. So this certainly isn't the right to travel within and outside their own country. Both parties are violating this declaration. Number 14 is a really interesting one. You know, like a lot of the declarations are sort of samey, they're very similar. And they kind of interject with each other then as a result. But number 14 has a bit of individuality about it that we can actually have a little bit of a nuanced discussion. So it states that everyone has the right to seek asylum in another country if they're being persecuted in their own country. Okay, clearly the Gazans, the Palestinian Gazans are being persecuted in their own country. I think we can all agree on that, certainly, you know, apart from maybe a few mad Zionists. However, the point of everyone has a right to seek asylum in another country, it's really interesting. There was some very good news last night, forgive me I don't have the source, only 2 or 3 nights ago, that Egypt, and I know this because Micheál Martin sent out a tweet congratulating the Egyptians for doing this, but Egypt has recently taken in 91 Palestinian refugees. So that's good news. That's a sign of progress. However, most countries, particularly in the EU and in Europe, have taken the stance of we will not be taking in any Palestinians for whatever reason. I don't know, is it an anti-Islamic thing? Is it that we don't have the room? Of course, there's a huge, you know, migration crisis in my country, Ireland, and many European countries at the moment. So it's understandable. However, I mean, I think it's wrong. Like, you know, surely we should be prioritizing people who are fleeing war and persecution. You know, but that's a topic for another day on migration in Ireland. But anyways, it's a really interesting one, and look, some really exciting news about the Egyptians letting in Palestinians. So perhaps the tide is changing. You can go on to Micheál Martin's X account to find the proof with that. However, I'm going to say this is a violation because most Western countries are taking the stance of no, we're not taking any Palestinians. So yeah, I'm going to say that's a violation. Not necessarily a violation by the Israeli government. I mean, it kind of is because they're causing the problem. But it's more of a violation actually by Western countries, funnily enough. So yeah, on to 15. So declaration number 15. If you remember the video I cited earlier from RTE News of that man, you know, that poor man whose daughter, I'm not sure what, but his daughter was captured by Hamas anyway, and I pray that she's alive and healthy now, but truthfully I don't know. But declaration number 15 states that everyone has a right to a nationality. Now, as I said, if we go into that man's mindset, and it's important to cover that I respect and empathize where he's coming from, because he's just lost his daughter to Hamas, who are supposed to be the defenders of Palestinians, etc. But I think it's very clear from his mindset, and if you look at Netanyahu's opinions, and I mean the general Zionist mantra is that Palestinians, it's not their land. This is not your land. Go elsewhere. You know, we're going to drive you out, sort of a thing. This is a God. It's almost a God-given right that Israel has this part of land in the Middle East. You know, it says it in the Bible, etc. So I think it's clear that this declaration number 15, everyone has a right to a nationality. I think this is being violated. Palestinians under the Zionist ideology have never really had their right to a nationality. So I think this is a very clear-cut violation. Number 16 is very straightforward. Everyone has the right to marry and have a family. Who do you think is getting married at the moment in Gaza? Absolutely no one. In terms of have a family, the sad truth is people's families are being lessened, you know, by the day. As we see more deaths, as we see 70% of those deaths being women and children, that's literally taking away the capacity to have a family. So clear violation. Nobody at the moment has a right to marry, you know, or and never mind have a family. Their families are quite literally being taken away from them. So yeah, it's sad truth is number 16 is another very clear cut violation. Right, so Declaration number 17 is a quite long one. It's definitely the longest that we've had to this date so far in this video, and it's that everyone has the right to own property on their own or with others. No one should have their property taken from them without good cause. I'm going to say this is a very clear violation by the Israeli government, because Palestinians and Gazans more specifically, as I've been saying all throughout this video, like all of these things like start a family, own property, tortured or treated cruelly, like they're not able to do these things simply because they're literally like very scared every day that they're going to be bombed, so it's a clear violation. Palestinians are more concerned about making sure they don't get blown to pieces than starting to own property. So I think this is, once again, unfortunately, a very clear cut that no one at the moment has the right to own property or own with others. And you could argue that their property is being taken away from them because they're being driven out of their homes, they're being blown to bits. This is violating their right to own property, and their property is in real time being blown to smithereens. So unfortunately, Declaration number 17 is another clear violation. 18 is once again, it's a bit like Declaration 2. It's one that hits very close to home of this whole saga going back to the 1940s and even before then. Everyone has the right to their own free thoughts, conscience, and religion, including the right to practice their religion privately or in public. Look, it's a clear violation. I don't think I need to explain it to you too much, and we kind of went over this earlier. But the whole Zionist ideology is that Israel is entitled to a Jewish state, which I agree with. I think there should be a Jewish state somewhere. As I say, I'd be for the two-state solution, but that's besides the point. It's essentially is, we want our religion, the Jewish religion, to infiltrate and stop the sort of Islamic Arabic religions. The second part of the declaration states that, including the right to practice their religion privately or in public. Palestinians, we discussed this earlier, they don't have private lives at the moment. They're too concerned with making sure that they survive. I'm sure they're praying. I know that they're praying to Allah, as they would say, but their religion, they're not able to practice their religion properly to the fullest extent. So unfortunately, number 18 is going to be another very clear violation. Number 19 is quite clear cut once more. So everyone, according to Dec number 19, everyone has the right to say what they think and share information with others. Actually, I actually read this wrong. I'm going to say that this is not being violated by the Israeli government. Because if you go onto Twitter, there is a lot of I'm going to give two perspectives here, okay? Because I did actually, look, I'm going to give two perspectives. So if you go onto Twitter there, and as I mentioned, Rihan Jafari, I believe Rihan is living in Gaza, Palestine at the moment. There is a lot of Twitter activists and etc. that are, and there's certainly loads of Palestinian people that are sort of trying to give us all a flavour of what's happening over there. So it isn't really fair to say that they're not able to share information with others, because we are getting plenty of information of what's happening there. That's what I'm basing a lot of these arguments off. So I don't think it's really fair to say that that's being violated. Have they the right to say what they think? I mean, yeah, they do, because we're getting this information from them. I don't think the Israeli government is happy with that this information is being put out. They would probably call it anti-Semitic propaganda, but it is getting out there. So I don't think it's fair to say this is being violated. All I would say is that in my chat with Rihan Jafari in the ActionAid webinar a few months ago, she said that Israel is trying to whitewash history, and the proof is in the pudding with the amount of journalists that they've killed. I think it's 4 or 5 journalists they've killed. UN peace workers, one of them was Irish, one of them was British, I think one was Polish, and maybe the other was Brazilian, I'm not 100% sure. Certainly Polish, Irish and British. So I suppose I don't, I don't think Israel are happy that people are allowed to start to say what they think and that it's information is being shared. I don't think they're happy with it. They are clearly trying to stop down on it to, I suppose, soften the numbers, make it look not as bad internationally as it looks right now. However, I don't think it's necessarily being violated because there is plenty of Palestinian activists like Rihan Jafari who are sharing this information out to the world. So through social media, etc. So yeah, declaration number 19, everyone has the right to say what they think and to share information with others. I think this is actually not even being from a pity marks perspective. Well, you look, you could make an argument that it's being violated, but I think it's not being violated. So that's I think out of 19 so far, that's 3 out of 19 non-violations. So the numbers are fairly shocking, but I suppose a cancellation is a cancellation at the end of the day. Now on to number 20. So Dec number 20 states that everyone has the right to meet with others publicly and privately, and here's the key word, lads, the key few sentences, and to freely form and join peaceful associations. Look, this is clearly being violated. As soon as you see the word peaceful, I think that it's fair to say that it's being violated in some sense. What's happening over there right now is the opposite of peaceful. It's terror, it's war, it's destruction. It's certainly not peaceful. People have the right to meet with others publicly. I mean, look, to an extent, and privately, to an extent, because Hamas soldiers are meeting with each other probably to organise how we're going to respond militarily. Ordinary Gazans, Palestinians, civilians are probably meeting together to go by the fire and try and make wood or make food out of firewood, and getting just any grains of rice or beef they can get their hands on. And so I suppose to an extent they're allowed to come together and meet each other privately and publicly to freely form associations. But I just think this is a clear as day violation, because it's impossible to form a peaceful association in Gaza right now. It just isn't feasible, and that is ultimately the fault of the rockets and fires that are coming in from the Israeli government at the moment. So I'm sorry to say it, number 20 is another clear violation. Declaration number 21 is a really interesting one because it actually allows me to sort of talk about a few different things. So Dec number 21 states that everyone has the right to vote in regular democratic elections and take part in the government of their country. So in terms of Palestinians, and this isn't, well, it is to an extent, but it isn't 100% the fault of the Israeli government. It's a lot of this is sort of on the Palestinian, I suppose, representative government, which of course Israel doesn't recognise, so that's why they have their role in it. But they've still got to do their work. So the president of the state of Palestine is a man named Mahmoud Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas is 88 years of age. He's absolutely ancient. He's even older than Joe Biden. And he has been in power for the last 15 years. Okay, so the declaration states that everyone has the right to vote in regular democratic elections. Clearly, he is overstaying his welcome. And, look, I'm sure he's a great man, Mahmoud Abbas. I'm going to be honest, please excuse my negligence, but I don't actually know a lot about him. I sort of just did my brief bit of research for this video. But whether he's the best president in the world or whether he's, like I imagine he is, too old for the job, like Biden, I think it's clear that the Palestinian people's rights to vote in regular democratic elections is not being fulfilled. If an 88-year-old man who's been in there for the last 15 years is there, it's a clear violation. However, the second part, so the first part I'm going to say is a violation on the side of the Palestinian sort of state of government. However, the second one is a violation from the Israeli government. So, and to take part in the government of their country, like as we've stated earlier, what is the Zionist ideology? You know, we've sort of explained it a few times now, and under the Zionist ideology, Palestine doesn't exist. It's not real. It's a fallacy. So that would suggest that this right is being violated by the Israeli people, because anyone who would call themselves Palestinian, you know, anyone who just considers themselves a Palestinian citizen in the same way I consider myself an Irish citizen, the Israeli government will not let them take part in the government of their country, you know. And this is a really interesting one, because it's a multi-winded argument that we could discuss even before this horrible military campaign. This was a thing, you know. So yeah, look, it's extremely sad, but number 21 is actually it was the first sort of interesting discussion in a while, and we only have 5 left now, thank God. But yeah, declaration number 21, yeah, is, I think, in part violation from the Palestinian government and the Israeli government, and I hope my rationales as to why were fair. Please comment down below if you think any are wrong, but that's how I view it anyways. On to 22. So yet another violation. This one is very straightforward, and I've explained it's very similar to many declarations that came before, and I've given rationale, so I'm just not going to give any explanation. I'm just going to tell you what it is and tell you it's a violation. Declaration 22 states that every country must do its best to ensure that everyone has enough to live a life of dignity. I've kind of explained why that's a clear violation. I think you're happy enough. If you want to know why and you've skipped on or whatever, go back to declaration number like 2 or 5 or something, and you'll see why. Yeah, it's pretty clear that is being violated. 23 as well, look, it's a bit different. It's a little bit different, but it's still quite similar, and I'm not going to spend too long explaining why this is a violation. Everyone has the right to work for a fair wage in a safe environment. Yeah, that's where it goes badly. And also has the right to join a trade union. It's very simple. This is a clear violation. Nobody has the right to work at the moment, never mind a fair wage. People's rights in Gaza at the moment, especially in like the northern hemisphere of the city, is essentially avoid bombs. You know, they're not thinking about going to work or earning a fair wage. That is something that is well beyond their grasp in this current status quo, unfortunately. So yeah, number 23 is going to be another clear-cut violation. Number 24 is very similar to the last two. Everyone has a right to rest and leisure time. You know, there's no rest, there's no leisure time. These people, you know, if we're going to just start to cover the rest element, leisure time isn't even worth discussing. But the rest element, I'd say in the worst parts of Gaza, I'd say you'd struggle to get a night's sleep for fear of being bombed, you know. So that's very clear. I'm going to once again link it back to the Israeli hostages that are still to this day being held by Hamas. They have no leisure time either, because they're probably in some dungeon, you know, possibly getting tortured, possibly being used as slaves, or whatever is happening to them. So yeah, they certainly don't have the right to rest and leisure time either. So this is a violation from both parties, Hamas and the Israeli government. Clear violation. Nobody at the moment in those two sort of departments has the right to rest or leisure time, unfortunately. Everyone has the right to home, enough food and healthcare. So look, the argument with food, look, it's clear, lads, it's going to be another violation. I don't think anybody needs to sort of me to tell you that, but what I'm going to do is, as we kind of come near the end, you know, declaration number 25, we're nearly done, I'm going to bring in some stats related to homes, food and healthcare as to why it's a clear-cut violation. So once again, this is according to Rehan Jafari. Rehan, you could look her up. I'd imagine she has some presence online. Is a Palestinian human rights activist. She lives in Palestine. You know, she's living in Palestine. She's seeing all of this with her own eyes. So she knows the facts here, you know, in my humble view. Some will say that she's a mouthpiece for Hamas. I think that's ridiculous. She very clearly condemned a lot of what Hamas do. All she wants is liberation for the innocent civilians whose lives are being taken from us as we speak. So that's the politics out of the way. Here's the statistics. So Rihan Jafari outlined that some people in Gaza have just 2 to 3 meals per week, not per day, not every 2 days. They're relying on, if they're lucky, 2 or 3 meals a week. So everyone has the right to enough food. They do not have enough food right now, not by a long shot. 60 as of March 2024, 16 children have died of starvation. I don't think you need or want to hear any more as to do they have enough food. They clearly don't have enough food, okay? And this is because humanitarian aid is being blocked. You know, there's loads of organisations like Action Aid Ireland all across the globe who are trying to help, and it's being blocked, it's being shut down by Israeli rocket ships and planes and stuff. So it's abundantly clear that they don't have enough food. I'm just going to quickly touch on healthcare. According to Rihan, once again, Gaza used to have 36 hospitals. However, now, due to the bombings, they only have 5. That is crazy. That is 31 hospitals being obliterated in the space of 6 months. How, in the name of God, have they managed to do that? And yeah, so Gaza used to have 36 hospitals. Now they only have 5 and lack medical supplies to try and support people who have been injured in the bombings. So not enough food, not enough healthcare. I'm just going to list off a few more stats just now to back up further points, I suppose. So Carol Baif, she is, Carol, if you're watching, hope you're doing well. She is an incredible woman. She is the CEO of Action Aid. And it was actually her who invited me to the webinar where I got these statistics from Rihan, etc. Carol Baif stated that Action Aid provide hot meals, medical support and hygiene aids to the people of Gaza, but it's been very difficult for humanitarian organisations to aid in such challenging conditions and circumstances. The contributors mentioned how difficult it is for us to get aid in. The Israeli army stopped the convoys and the humanitarian crisis has worsened as a result. People are queuing for grain and flour are being attacked by the IDF. It's reminiscent of what happened in the Great Irish Famine, where, you know, people would be essentially shot, or well, not shot, but they'd be med-starved to death if they didn't re-anglicise their name and take the soup. So yeah, look, it's shocking. It's a disgrace. Yeah, final point from Rihan is that she praised how the Irish government have been giving financial aid, total of €30 million from Micheál Martin back in, I think, February, given to humanitarian organisations working in Gaza, and urged the Irish people to keep raising awareness, etc. So anyway, going back to Declaration number 25, their homes are being destroyed, so they don't have the right to a home. They clearly don't have enough food, according to those statistics, and they've gone from 36 to 5 hospitals. Healthcare, food and their homes are absolutely being violated. Let's go on to the last declaration. My voice is getting a little bit worn out now at this stage. So Declaration number 26 states that everyone has the right to education and free primary education. Clearly not. Kids who should be in school, getting their education, getting their primary or secondary education, or however it would work over there in the Middle East, are too busy being bombed to bits, to smithereens. Look, I don't want to get into it too much, lads. It's getting a little bit hard to talk about now, honestly. But it's very clear. You can go on and see, if you really want to see this, I don't recommend you look at it. You can go on to Twitter and see how injured these children and women and some men are, you know. It's very clear that they don't have the right to education or free primary education. So that's all 26 declarations. It makes for pretty bad reading, folks, doesn't it? It's fairly shocking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my calculator. I believe there was three non-violations out of 26. So we're going to calculate with my calculator what percentage that brings Hamas and the Israeli government to. As I said, I tried to give as much marks as I could. We still only got 3. So there's a very clear breach of the UDHR here, pretty much undebatably. But let's see what percentage they got out of 100 in, I suppose, this little exam. Right, so 3/26. That gives us 11%. There you go. 11%. So Hamas and the Israeli government together, maybe it would have been slightly not as harsh if we just did one group, but I wanted to keep it balanced. I didn't want to just attack the Israeli people or attack Hamas and the Palestinians, I suppose. A total of 11%. I mean, that's shocking. It just shows that, as my title states, this is a very clear humanitarian crisis. And look, the truth is, as I told everybody about this, and as we read it online, I understand that we can feel a little bit helpless in these scenarios, especially when aid actually is dropped over there, that it's often getting intercepted by Israeli ships and stuff. So is there even a point? All I'll say is I would urge anyone who has, as I said at the start of the video, anyone who has the means to do so. I'm not trying to tell anybody who's in difficult financial constraints, by all means don't. But anyone who has the means to do so and believes that this is truly a humanitarian crisis that we will remember in years to come as one of the most horrific events maybe to ever happen in history, do what you can. If you're living in Ireland, donate to ActionAid Ireland. Whether it's €2, whether it's €10 or €100, just do your little bit. I believe ActionAid have a company in England as well. That's hence why it's called ActionAid Ireland. So anyone watching in the UK can do the same. Or around the world, there's always going to be local charities. Do your research, make sure they're legitimate. I know they're legitimate. I've met loads of their members and they're lovely. But find a charity you believe in that's helping over in Gaza, because whatever side of the fence you sit on, whether you're Israel or Palestine, it's a terrible situation. It is a humanitarian crisis. Nobody can debate that. We can have debates about who should have the land, etc. We can go on about that stuff all day, but it's definitely a humanitarian crisis. So I would just urge anyone, and it's not to be putting you under pressure, just do what you can. There's going to be a link in the description of this video to actionaidireland.ie. Look, it's completely up to yourselves. If you want to donate, please do. I would say you should, but I'm not putting any pressure on you either. So that's my little piece on that. And I suppose that's going to bring us to the end of the video, folks. So look, if you're the examiner and you managed to last this long, thank you so much. Sorry, I imagine it, I don't know the time now, but I imagine it's gone on quite long. But thank you, and anybody else who stuck around, you're a real one. Comment GG if you stayed around this far. Comment GG, good game, and then I'll know that you lasted this long and stayed this far, and you found out the result of 11%. How shocking is that? So yeah, look lads, key things, stay tuned. I plan to be making much more videos in the future, ones that are a bit more light-hearted than this. I suppose this is a part of my politics and society project, so I had to cover this topic. It had to be a dark one, unfortunately. But I plan to make lots of videos in the future and a bit more positive, a bit more upbringing. As well, if you could let me know this in the comments, lads. I suppose as I was first thinking of the concept, the idea, and it's such a strange concept, but you could actually do this with loads of different countries in the world. I mean, obviously, this is such a excruciating circumstance that there's going to be lots of breaches. But maybe I could make a video like Irish Human Rights Declaration examination and see, does Ireland qualify to all 26? Because I'm sure there's some in there that we don't at the moment in the state of politics over here. Same, just any country really. So if you enjoyed, lads, please let me know. Please let me know if you'd like to do see more videos of this UDHR concept. Yeah, that's all I'll ask for. If you enjoyed, leave a like. If you didn't enjoy, that's okay too. That's why YouTube made a comment section. Tell me what you didn't enjoy. Tell me what I need to improve on. Tell me what I need to work on. That's going to be it, lads. Gar míle maigwibh. Thank you so much for watching, and slán go fóill.